You are listening to the What a Word podcast, an interview-style podcast where guests bring their unique experiences and insight on culture, life's challenges, and faith. Each episode is seasoned with words which will inspire and encourage. Now here is your host, Ryan Sharp.
Welcome to the What a Word podcast. My guest today is Marilyn Fielder Whitley. She is a lady who affirms others, very vibrant in women's ministry in her local church, very gifted artist, singer, and I know her pride and joy also has to do with family. She is the personification of elegance. And I told Sister Marilyn before we started that I made a host of assumptions about her life, and we will unpack those as we have our conversation today. So please join me in welcoming my guest, Marilyn Fielder Whitley, to the What a Word podcast. Welcome, Sister Marilyn. Welcome.
Thank you so much. You laid a lot on. I hope I live up to all those things you just said about me, but bless your heart.
So, Sister Marilyn,
thanks for having me.
You're most welcome, most welcome. So I mentioned at our pre-taping that I made a host of assumptions about you, and you can correct me if I'm wrong. But I met, just for my listeners and viewers, I met Sister Marilyn at a very vibrant church in Brooklyn called Kingsborough Temple of Seventh-day Adventist, and I made some assumptions about her. She was and may still be a women's ministry leader at that time. And our church does not always treat women well. We appreciate their service, but in terms of affirming and validating them, we don't always get it right. But Sister Marilyn led perhaps one of the most vibrant women's ministries I've seen. And she took every opportunity to affirm and validate the women who serve not only in leadership, but behind the scenes with families. So I made some assumptions that Sister Marilyn perhaps had some history in the civil rights movement because of her advocacy. I also made some assumptions based on her gifting. If you've never heard Sister Marilyn sing, you have to go to the church or check out the church's recorded services on YouTube, and you will see that she is gifted. And I thought to myself, this could not just all be talent. I believe Sister Marilyn was classically trained or had some training as a singer and an artist. And then here are some other assumptions I made. Sister Marilyn is so elegant. I said she is either an actress, a model, or she has her stylist on speed dial, because I've never seen her with a bad hair day, or I've never seen her without, and dressing wise, she just does it at 100% every week or every time I've seen her. So these are the assumptions I made, Sister Marilyn. I know you're a grandmother, I know you're a wife, but I made a host of other assumptions. So please let me know if I'm in the ballpark or, I'm way off base.
No, you're not way off at all. As a matter of fact, as far as elegance, let me just clarify that. I think that elegance comes from being able to, it's knowing that you can fit into any room, because of your personality. Some people will look at what you have on or how you carry yourself, or how you expect it to be. And when you're not going to be, you're not going to be smooth mixing with all people. But when you walk into a room and you have a smile and your heart is lifted, then you can fit in it with any group or any type, any financially status person. You can walk up to them and greet them and be greeted in return. Just based on that. Because it shows your smile and the ability holding your head erect and knowing that you are favored has a lot to do with what people assume is elegance. Now, as far as never having a bad hair day, brother, it's good you don't see me every day. We all have a bad hair day. I've been a licensed cosmetologist in the state of Baltimore, Maryland. And in this state, when I moved to New York, I kept both my licenses. So I'm a licensed cosmetologist, but I'm also a child of the 50s. So I know a little something about doing the hair. And my mom was like, those women back then, you're talking about dressing. Look at some of these old movies and look at some of the sisters, even poor, they kept themselves. They never went out without their lipstick, and they just, whatever they had, the styles of those days, the 40s, the 30s. Well, I'm a 50s child, so my mother was a 30s, a 20s, 30s woman, and she dressed, and she always coordinated her daughters. I had 3 sisters, and that's just the way we did, But I have a little, I like to knock around in my sneakers and my sweats and, but it was always a thing, just be coordinated, to some degree. I got I like that. I feel that, represent yourself,
Yes.
And even if you're in funky, make sure it's just clean, and just dress the way you feel for the day, or the occasion. Don't try to imitate. You might see other people with your stuff, but your attitude and whatever you put on, makes it makes the outfit or makes whatever. Powerful. You also, you can stop because I have a tendency to run on.
That's fine. That's fine. I mean, what you said really resonated with me because you confirmed for me that you had the licensing. I didn't even know that as a cosmetologist. That's awesome.
Yeah, well, when you say you're a cosmetologist, people put expectations on what you're doing now and what is in the magazines and all this and all this. I think an experience of women, how we've had to always, not always, but sometimes we just have to do a lot of things. We can't always run to a salon or because because of finances or whatever. But I just recommend everyone to go online and find out, and a lot of people do now. I've started out doing relaxers and colors because I got my license in 1980 something in Baltimore. And from back then the style, it was all permed hair, and that acrylic nail just started coming out and all that stuff. And then I began to get a little more into natural. My daughter is a licensed beautician who specializes in she's in natural hair. And so all the girls in my family now, natural. Don't get me wrong. I like natural, but I don't like gray, and I like color. I like bright, vibrant colors, and I do color my hair. But I think a woman should just get the basics on learn little things that she can do at home to maintain herself, skincare, how to dress your type of hair, what products to put on your type of hair, keep your mane flowing and vibrant, because sisters of colors, we go the whole spectrum, and that's a good thing. We can blow our hair out one day, put some water on it, and it's bouncing back to curly time. So it just finds out what rocks your boat and what you rock, and just stick with it, keep it simple.
Wow. So your roots are in Baltimore, Sister Marilyn? Is that where you were raised?
As a matter of fact, right in the heart of, I lived like 7 blocks, 10 at the most, of where they filmed The Wire.
Really?
Yes. So I'm a Baltimore born, Southwest Baltimore sister. Right at the bottom of South, where they did The Wire on Fayette Street. I lived at 2500 block of West Fayette Street. Our family was pretty, we were pretty well known for our antics. That's where a lot of the drama from my past But I'm also a middle child of I have two families, one from my father's first marriage and one through his marriage with my mother. So we come from a big family. I have from the Wrights. We all down south and from Philly. My mother grew up in South Philly, and so I have the combination of color and of colors in my family, which you said acting. I love acting. I used to have to pretend a lot, when I was a child, to take me out of the things that were happening politically around me. So I was right there in the middle. They still had. I lived with the colored and white only signs that you see. I was young, but my father was a sharecropper. And yes, he comes from a family of 13, and my mother comes from a family of 10. But my dad, they used to bootleg the moonshine down in North Carolina, Rocky Mountain. And yes, he was the eldest of 13 children. And it was really bad. I remember one instance when we were still, when I was like 7 or 8, my dad, we all were driving down to North Carolina to visit my grandmother and the rest of the family. And we could not, segregation. You could not go in the front door. And like in that era, our parents who really lived that, or my parents, that's all I could speak to, but it was common that parents tried to shield their children from the effects of racism. So a lot of it wasn't discussed, and the challenges of their past. Even my mom's in Philly, it was strong everywhere, the era. But they didn't want they felt that if they didn't talk about it to their kids, they wouldn't have to know it. And they did the best they could to shield us from it. However, you could not escape it, because when you got that random incident where you were directly exposed to it, it was you didn't know how to take it in. You just felt people were being mean, and for what reason? I think that it was a big mistake it's a mistake for parents not to sit their kids down, choose the right moment, and tell them their pains, the pains of their past, and their way out. So it strengthens and equips their children to be able to deal with things or have a reference point, Anyway, with this example, we were hungry. My 3 sisters and I, we were in the back seat of my dad's Cadillac, because he always had to have one. Yes, he was that guy. And we were going down and we were hungry. So Daddy, we're hungry. Mom, we want to stop and eat. And they kept telling us, just wait, we're not that far, because they knew what the situation was. But we worried them to death. And my father, I'm the middle girl, so I was always clinging, hanging out with my dad. I think he took me as being his quote unquote boy, because he had 3 girls. And his the son that he had was in North Carolina. And at any rate, well, we finally stopped. And he took me by the hand, and we went inside of this little place. And this big, I'm going to say white lady, because that's what we call them. But we call Caucasians that. This big white lady who was working in this place, it was a burger place. And the food smelled good. All we wanted was burgers and fries. And we were excited, So I went in with my dad. And when he got in, this lady at the register said, "Oh, you're not supposed to be in here. You got to go. You got to go to the back." And another white lady was in there, said, "Sir, just go to the back, and I'll try to bring you some food." I looked up at my dad who stood like 6'2.5", and I could see his whole demeanor change. And I never understood what that look was until I got older. My dad looked like that someone had sunk, his shoulders sunk, and it was like the joy was sucked out of him. And I looked back on that and I realized that's the pain and struggle that Black men experience. And to this day, the residue is still there. And even with the killings and the shooting, it's prevalent, and I've never forgot that look on my dad's face. Anyway, we had to go to the back of that restaurant. We pulled on the side and we sat on the grass and we ate. He fed his children. And the humility I knew that he felt, he paid that. My dad was prideful, man. But that right there in front of, and I think in their daily existence, they dealt with that a lot. But what made it worse was that his little girl was with him when he was humiliated like that. But no matter what, we were hungry. And so he did what he needed to do to get that food to feed his children. I never forget that. Never, ever. I also witnessed during, I was there when Martin Luther King got killed, the Kennedys, the whole struggle, Black Power, the Panthers, I love them. Right in our street. We were on curfew during the riots of the Panthers in Baltimore. And there was a tank that drove up into my particular block, and demanded us to be off the streets or they would open fire. And yes, I am an activist to the degree that I will speak out. And the fight goes on. It's not that you always have to have a banner or stand in a protest, but you have to reach and teach and love and nurture the children coming up, because it's no way that people can say it's gotten better. They say it's gotten better. No, it's just been masked differently so that people think it doesn't exist until the stuff hits you in the face. But it's always been an underlying issue. And when we begin to fight for the systemic changes of racism, then it will never change. And no, they haven't even scraped the surface. That's why they can stand up and still come with the verdicts that they come in courtrooms, because we haven't gotten to the laws that change. Okay. They know who we are as a people. They know we strong. They know we got it going on. It's that we haven't realized our worth yet. And that's my, and the brothers, man, they are our priests and our kings. We have to recognize them at that until they even realize it themselves. Man, give me some melanin any day of the week. I don't care what flavor it comes in, but I loves my brothers. Okay.
Powerful,
so much
Sister
power.
Marilyn. Powerful.
Yeah.
Because what you gave me in that illustration, that story with your dad, it points to what you also said, that so many families have to provide against a backdrop of discrimination.
Oh, yes.
So many challenging experience, and yet your dad, he says, my daughters need to be fed. So it's not even just for that story, but it represents the lives of your family and so many other families.
And so many other families.
Have
Yes.
to make do, notwithstanding the hardships and the challenges of life. The other thing you pointed out, Marilyn, and I want to ask you about that as well, is you were there during some of the important points of the civil rights movement to see where we are now, where things seem to be going in cycles. How sobering is that for you?
Well, I've kind of like, some people, would think of me and when I see these as the mad Black woman, because, first you experience the hurt of it. And then you display that hurt through anger, because you just don't be angry for nothing. And I'm telling people now, when they talk about the mad Black woman, she's first the hurt Black woman. And then she relates to that pain through anger. Because if our brothers don't see the struggle, even here in some of our mothers, they don't understand. They would be embarrassed. And when I was little, my mom used to go into white people's houses and scrub and clean their floors and bring their laundry home to my house to iron it and spray starch it. Crisp collars, crisp cuffs, shirts starched to the nine, you know, and after a point you hear kids talking and laughing. Oh, your mom's a maid. Yeah, she was. But my mom, she had cooked the best meals out of what she had. Back then it was difficult. I mean, it was difficult, but they hid it from us. They hid their finances from us. They hid their struggles from us. And they tried to hide because they thought that would make it better for us. But what that did is it made us ignorant of their struggle. So we couldn't relate to their pain, and they didn't know how to relate it to us because they were hiding. And their hours, they had no time to really be that hurt woman or that hurt man. So oftentimes my dad would go drink. And my mother would, oftentimes want him to do better. But my dad wasn't a college educated because it wasn't happening in his day, nor my mother's day. However, you start having families, which we should. That's the only way we're going to grow as a nation, is to have children. But it was difficult because of the finances that it took, the housing, the food. You can't get help. You can't afford an education. All of that is systemic. You understand? And because they hid it from us, instead of teaching us how to make a difference and the importance of getting education so that we could fight the systemic and know what they're about. Instead of our existence, we say, a lot of kids said, oh, I'm not going to be like that. I'm going to get me a job. And then what we did with our monies was go buy, cars, and so we wouldn't be in the struggle. But we didn't realize, because we weren't taught, that we would always be in the struggle because of the color of our skin. And so we're always fighting this thing, and we're replacing the struggle with things. And it's still happening. The more things you have, the bigger degree you have, the more prominent your title is. You feel like you're not that anymore, but you are that, because the society we live in is set up for you to be that. You can have a title, but there's going to be that ceiling or door that you will always hit because of who we are. And you may not be able to have to live in the hood, but I'm telling you now, the hood is good. But what we're teaching in the hood is what we need to, is how to be another Black Wall Street. But we have to teach from young ages. And then we have to decide in our hearts that even though you have these things, this is who I am. So I relate to my people. I relate to the guy. I relate to the kids because I've lived that. And we can't detach ourselves from those people, call us those people. We are those people. We are all of that. We are still all of that right now. And yes, don't think you're better than or above. It is what you do with your education and your knowledge, and how you strengthen your brother, and how you treat him, how you love them. You can't look down on it, because we're all of that. We have a history of oh my God, the intertwined things. My mom sang on the ships as she got, she sang before she started having children. She was an entertainer. Yes, she was the entertainment on ships. My mom's, she has interracial background. And you find a lot of that in families because they were close to coming out of slavery. And back then, that's what happened. So yes, my sisters are really light, and I say that I'm the dark one in the family. Back then, it could go so. There's a whole segment for each part of this. The dark skinned girls, and the light skinned girls, and the in between girls, and the curly haired girls, and the straight haired girls, and all of that is it is just. We have become so detached from who we are as a people that it's hard. I don't know how to tell people to identify, but your identity know that you are a child of God. And he made you with a purpose, and he made you perfect in our skin. And we have to detach, our minds from the monetary things and the things that we have. And when we look at the gifts that God has given us, and we have to find our niche on how to please God and use those to pull up our fellow man. Everything that you do, if you do nothing but tell your sister, girl, you looking good today, you're going to go ahead and conquer the world, to a perfect stranger, because she does look good. And the brothers too. Everything doesn't have to be on a flirtatious nature. You just have to be real and honest and talk to each other with that honesty and that love. And people will feel you. And they might just walk by and say, oh, I didn't know I looked good today. And get another opinion on who they are and what other people see them as. Because sometimes we don't get that at home. We didn't get that as children because our parents didn't have time for it. They were too busy, trying to make a living, trying to bring stuff home. We didn't get a bunch of hugs and a validation as children. We got, you do what I say and not as I do. But we're still looking on, I'm going on and on. When you start opening this, I automatically start referring to the, so come
That's
on.
fine.
You got to guide me, brother. You have to guide me now.
Powerful nuggets, Sister Marilyn. And I think, to your point, sometimes affirming somebody makes a difference in that person's day, because like you said, we don't even know what people are going through. We see them, they may look good or they may not look so good, but giving a word of encouragement could make all the difference in the world. You mentioned how acting helped you to cope with what you were dealing with, just being a child in that era, seeing systemic racism, police brutality, the dysfunctions of the Black family, by forces within and without. What place did singing play in your life? Because evidently your gifting points to that being a part of your formative years.
Yes. So my dad, being the eldest of all those kids, and they had a little pet. They were sharecroppers. They had my grandmother still had her house with the pump, the really cranking pump that you would crank the water in the middle of her house, the big pot-belly stove, and the outhouse. A tradition was that they would all sit around and they would play gospel music, and getting an old piano was like a luxury then. You find an old piano that was passed down from them saloon days. My dad was born in 1928, I forget right off. I have to go back and look at our little history, but yeah, they would sit in that room and all the brothers and sisters would come in and they would start singing and their feet would start stomping on the floor and they start playing the music. And, and that was a tradition in the family. So when we were growing up, my three sisters, my dad would have that old guitar, and he had this little electric guitar, and he wasn't skilled. He wasn't trained, to play, by notes or whatever, but he just played by ear and he would sing by ear. And he would tell us, come on, girls. And because my mother would sing on the ship, they would teach us to sing old hymns and old gospels. And every time somebody would come over the house, he'd call us together and he'd start the playing, and we have to sing. And I loved singing. And I think at a young age, God was with me because, and music took me away because music, when you open up to sing, without any cause, way before being on the stage. It allowed you to open up, just forget about everything but the sounds and what came out. But that's where people get their feel from. It's your own little thing. I don't know what you call it. It's your own little thing. So I think the country music and the gospel music, I went on through school. I would always love it because that was my outlet. And if they did any little play or any little skit and any whatever, I would volunteer. And I would start singing little songs that I would see on the TV shows and add them to whatever the role was. I love dramatic reading, And so I began to put myself into these stories. And that was my way of changing my circumstances, if no more than just temporarily. Through that moment, I could be that thing that I was singing about, or that person, or that feeling, or that happy feeling. And even in my sadness, to sing it displayed some of my sadness, but I didn't feel what caused the sadness. So emotions, and that was, God was good. But later on, after I married and began to prematurely get into relationships, that music, because I kind of tuned God out at that point. I was living off my mother and dad's, who their God was, that they would tell us God when Jesus was, but I wasn't feeling them because of all the other stuff that I would see in my household. So I kind of turned to drugs as a source of my outlet. But that's another story. We could get to that. But that's where, but the music, yes. At one point in my life, I got I won a scholarship to go to Peabody Conservatory of Music in Baltimore. And me not knowing, and nobody knowing, to tell me, girl, go ahead, learn that theory. All I wanted to do was sing. If you can't teach me how to do runs, I ain't got time for that. So, if I could go back, but that's the important. But people, if you can't expect people who don't know to teach other people what they never knew. And my parents, they never had that, so they couldn't help us with our homework because they weren't educated. My dad had a partial third grade education. So he barely could read himself, My mother had a 10th grade education. So some of the things that we were learning, she didn't know. She was working, she didn't go to school. She didn't have time. They had to feed us. And so, we didn't have that. So you can't expect a person who never had love in their heart to teach you how, to love you when it comes to that. That's the generational curses that are passed down. The pains of our family, of our ancestors. But what could never be taken from them is God and their strength to go on to the next day. Yeah, they had crutches. I had crutches, And the singing part, I never gave that up. But trust me, I could sing. I used to be a soprano. But smoking cigarettes, smoking weed, smoking everything that wasn't nailed to the floor, and age played a factor. And, in my range, I still love to sing. I have a blues influence and a jazz influence. I sang with I've sang with B.B. King, a lot, not Miles Davis, a lot of, background, because I was I was in this wedding band when I was in high school, and we had one of the first high school gospel choirs. It was a massive choir. We had the Northwestern Senior High School Choir, and that right there was a lot of people's stand to this day. A lot of my schoolmates, people in that choir, that connection to God through the music, you just don't know. That was so life-saving, because God never left us. He never left me. I left him. And I stepped outside of that and went to singing We in high school, we needed a band to pay for our senior activities. So a lot of us who played music, we got a big old band together. And we called ourselves the Grand Jury because it was around Watergate time. And so we called ourselves the Grand Jury. We had these crazy outfits because that was Funkadelic and all of that was happening. And I wore blue hair, big blue wig, and my girlfriend, Faye Washington, had a big pink wig, and everybody's went to big platform shoot. That was it. And that was the turning point of me in the music. And everything else that went through the entertainment, drugs, all of that was where I turned, And
so Peabody was, in a sense, your confirmation, I believe, that you could really do music and do it well. Or you got some training there, obviously.
I got no training there because I was I wanted to. Coming from school, I figured that because back then, and even today, a lot of people sound and sing alike, and they do what's popular instead of being guided to know your own gift. I tell you, don't get it twisted though. To have a theory in your background preserves all of that and helps you to develop your gift. That I did not know. I had my own idea of what music school was going to be. So, and I guess I was under the influence of marijuana too, because I had my idea. I had already been singing, and been singing with these people. And when I got the scholarship, I was in my mid-20s. And so when I went the first couple of days to Peabody, they wanted me to sit down and do these things that I had, but that was how school is. You go through phases of it. And I had 2 semesters of the scholarship. It wasn't like a 4-year scholarship that I got from leaving high school and I worked toward and they granted me a 4-year. No, it was, I was singing for this group of women called what was the name of it? It was a group of women from a sorority who always met. And it was really big. They came from all over the country. And my band that I was singing with we were the band that were doing this event, the engagement. And I was already singing and we did it. It was an annual thing and we played for it for quite some years. And so because they knew of the band and knew me as being their singer, they awarded me a certain amount of money that would pay for that was the scholarship for Peabody. So let me break that down. It wasn't like I just, got it from high school and didn't go to the whole, no, when I had already been singing for years and years and years. And I wanted to learn things that that the singers, Sarah Vaughan and all of them were doing to enhance. So I figured that I could go with my bold self to Peabody and tell them, no, this is what I want you to teach me. And if you don't teach me, I didn't see where I needed that because you were trying to teach me now, how to, count to, but I've been singing up here, singing for forever. And I don't want to learn. I don't need that. So I thought. And so I wasted that opportunity. However, you live and you learn. I can't beat myself up. I can't change it. So I just, this gentleman, and I'm sure you've heard of him, Carl Jackson from Kingsborough Temple. That man right there is gifted. So I paid him and he gave me some vocal lessons at my later on in life. And I've kept that with me. So yes, Carl Jackson, I don't know if he's still doing it, but that right there, Professor Jackson, Carl Jackson, he's the man. He's a good brother. He has a big heart and he will teach. He taught me posture. He taught me, he taught me posture. He taught me how to breathe. And all the choirs at Kingsborough, they incorporate that, I believe, because of Carl Jackson. And he's no longer there. But if you ever come back, Carl Jackson, I love you, brother. I just had to say that because that's who gave me some training afterwards. And I never forgot that stuff. And you incorporate life. You know, I'm a jazzy woman, but yes, I love to sing. Matter of fact, I sang for Sabbath school. That's when you check because it was impromptu. It was fun. And I like doing that yesterday. It's so music, you know, music is, you have to be, when you sing, especially gospel music or any type of music that you sing, you have to sing from a place that you know will reach someone. You have to be honest, and you have to incorporate something that's going to reach someone. And even through your interpretation of it, it has to be a desire to heal and give somebody a sense of peace when they hear your music. And you know, and music does, you know, because people will relate to your expressions and your heart and the music that's played, that puts people in a place where they relate to you. If people have a lot of expectations on, oh, you don't sound like, oh, you need to sing this song just like the record, then I'm like, well, maybe you need to find a different person because, you know, anyway.
Sister Marilyn, you touched on some personal experiences as well with what sounds like an early introduction to drug use. Did that happen around the same time you were becoming more involved in music, or did it happen before then?
It happened and all of that. And when you get into that music scene, you know, the more you could get into a feeling, the more people feel that you can be expressive. But if you're not aware of knowledge of drugs, or just like anything that you do, how it affects your physical and the reason that you're using it. Drug use is a mental disease. Anything that you do that takes you out of your natural state is because of something emotional or some traumatic or something. It's a route of escapism. And I found all that stuff out being in a therapeutic community. Yes, I started off smoking marijuana. We used to call it was song of Rick James. I'm in love with Mary Jane. Yes, it was the culture. It was the norm. The hippie movement, all of that. I lived in it. You know, the burning your bra, the whole all of that. That's who I am. That's part of where I grew up. And the drug use then it progressed. It progressed, brother. It was parts when I had this little convertible. And when I met my first husband, we used to, the thing was norm to smoke, roll a J, get high, and just forget everything else and just be free. But there's no such thing. When you use, there's no such, it's a lie from hell, straight from the devil. And trust me, y'all, you can say, it starts off as, such a good feeling, and the circumstances around it, we're not doing any harm, but you're harming yourself and you don't realize it, because as you progress in it, every day that you do it, it's affecting you physically and it's keeping you from addressing issues. And those issues that you're masking and existing are still there. That hurt little girl was still there. She was just intoxicated, you know, and then you grow and you start doing things, but you're not doing them normally because you're under the influence. So you're not coherent. You're not aware, you know, and you're functioning. And eventually, you know, people say, well, I've been doing this for years. Think about that. And I never lost my job. Yes, you maybe not, but you were doing things to cover. You can't strategically be there's no strategic and functioning addict, people. And you may have your weekend thing that you do, but you've been doing that every weekend for 30 years. You're an addict. And the true grit of it is, you're an addict. Marijuana was made for medicinal purposes. It wasn't made to ingest in your lungs. It was made to use for treating illnesses. Okay? And smoking it, that's why people take the oils and the CBD and all of that other stuff. It wasn't made for you to smoke that stuff, because now it has a different effect on your lungs and it's channeling through different channels. You got to be educated about drugs and the use of drugs, because there you will get the effects of it. Not only physically, but it will affect your pocket, your finances, how you react, and you're not healing from the issues that made you want to pick it up to start with. So all of that is still prevalent, you know. So I had to, when in the TC, you get tools, and I started in the rooms of Narcotics Anonymous, and people say, "Oh, turn to Jesus." Yes, eventually. Look, Jesus was always there. When I talk about the wire, I've been shot at, just missed gunfire. I used to listen when I started using cocaine. That's a whole nother story. The world of crack. Okay.
So marijuana was the gateway drug, Marilyn?
Yes, marijuana.
Mm-hmm.
Marijuana was, because it makes you feel euphoric.
Yeah.
It makes you relax. It makes you want to laugh, giggle. Some people get paranoid. Not me. Oh no. I mean, like, you know, that's my personality. And you have to know who you are. And that's going to be what affected. People who are gifted, us, we are grand. We come from kings and queens. And we come on that scale, and people, and we are beat down with life to feel that we're less than. And once you begin to feel like that, you're like climbing out of a hole. And that, on top of the need to be out of this existence, just for a moment, is where the Satan will say, "Come on, but try this."
Mm-hmm.
All right, look what they're doing. They having fun. And there you be, you know. But all of it, you have to start tearing down levels and layers of mess to get to see that you can live life on its terms, you know, without the use of drugs. I used to drink, drug, smoke cigarettes, all of it, cocktails, do the whole nine. The only thing I have never done, and it's not bragging, because a drug is a drug and it takes you away from your from reality. I've never shot heroin. And I'm not knocking people who do, because a lot of people never smoke crack, you know. It's just, there comes a point where you reach your lowest, and then that mighty hand of the Lord is right there. Because my mother couldn't save me. My daddy couldn't save me. I'm sure they prayed for me. Nobody could do that for me. But my desire to stop and my reaching to grab that hand of the master who was always there.
When were you at your lowest? When were you at your lowest? When were you at your lowest?
I was at my lowest when my first marriage, and I married my first love, the man that I met, the boy I met. I was 15 and he was 17. And that young love, you know, and I didn't know anything about love, the real love, the love that you have to work on, the unselfless love. I was looking for the love that I didn't get from home. Those hugs from my dad, those hugs from my mom, the things that you see of a parent on TV, of that white picket fence, and all of that stuff, what you think the dad comes home with the lunch pail and the mother in the June cleaver and the big wide dress and the earrings and the pearls and the high heels and the beautiful home in the background, and mom is making lunch for the kids, and they have this big table, everyone's sitting around the table with potatoes, mashed potatoes and peas and the roast and all of that. I got that on Christmas and Thanksgiving. But looking outside of my life and my existence, I was like, well, why are y'all fighting all the time? And you're not doing that, but these people are happy, so my life is not happy. I didn't know to value what they could give us because they were hiding that they couldn't give us anymore. You understand? And so you look outside of your life. And so I wanted the man who loved me to, and all I could go by is being with somebody who made me feel good, because it wasn't love. It was feeling good. And so the feeling good extends from the kiss and the making out and all that other stuff you do when you're young, because it makes you feel good. And you think that's love when you're young and you're out there just experimenting. And when you're in pain and experimenting, you transfer love for what makes you feel good. So I was feeling good. And we did the things that kept us feeling good. So a big chunk of that. And then, of course, unprotected. I got pregnant with my daughter, which was, thank you, was a wonderful thing that happened to me in that, because that's a gift from God. But as you grow older, teenagers, and you begin to discover who you are, the person that you're feeling good with might not be that. And they might not think that you're the woman that they need, because you're both just feeling good. And so the common ground was you got two people, two males, a young male and a young female, needing to feel good, trying to build a house on what foundation? And so when we have the family now, we don't know how to be parents. We don't know how to raise a family. We're kids ourselves. So what the hurt that took me out of that was, now I have this child. I'm confused. And I don't feel good anymore because you're not around. The man's not around. He's living what he thinks, because he's confused too. But we have all these things here based on something that shouldn't have happened. That's why the Bible says, don't get married, have sex when you get married. But who wants to do that? We want to feel good. And once you start feeling good, there's no other feel good like that. And then when that person leaves, you want to keep feeling good. So you move on to the next, and to the next, and to the next. So you have these multiple relationships. Well, this one, we got married. It wasn't a shotgun marriage, but you wasn't going to get this is how our parents thought back then. You ain't going to get my daughter pregnant and not marry her. But as that wasn't how our parents stuck and stayed. They were miserable together, but they stuck and stayed. It was dysfunctional, but they stuck and stayed. In my generation, we got married, but the man wasn't sticking and staying. And sometimes it was the woman who would, but not the woman had the child. And that's when you had the single parent family thing beginning. It was so relevant, prevalent in my day. It still is. But and what hurt me was because the promises he made to me when we were feeling good together. Oh, I love you, baby. I'm going to be there forever. Me, I love hard. I do everything hard. I do everything 100% hard. I give my life to Christ. I give it hard. Oh, I'm not perfect in that. I love my man hard. When I say I love you, you got me 100%. All my mess included, but you got me 100%. I'm not looking to the left and I'm not looking to the right. It's you and me straight ahead. And he wasn't able to do that because it's easy to give promises. But when you outgrow your promises, or you don't understand the promises you're making while you're making them, and you're involving sex with promises, that's a whole big danger zone, because the devil's all in the mix to that, because you don't have room for God, because you're doing everything he says not to do in those relationships.
Powerful. So, Marilyn, the question that I think listeners and viewers will definitely want to hear the answer to as well is, you are at your lowest, dealing with drug addiction. How did the gospel make sense to you at that time? How did you're now at the point where you're serving faithfully in the church. How did that come into your life? How did that make sense to someone who had experienced all you had experienced?
To tell you the truth, right away, it did not. And I can't lie and say it did, because the only thing I knew of God was what my mother and father told me as a child, and God don't like that. Don't do it. They had no explanation because nobody gave them one. And so they were living off their parents, the assumption of God. But it's about developing relationship with God and who you are. You can't have a relationship even with a person acting like you're that person's mother or you're someone else. You have to be in a relationship of who you are totally. That is what begins to make a relationship. In my point of drug addiction, let me speed back a little bit. At the age of 9, I developed rheumatic fever. And my parents had become Adventists. And we were going to Allegheny East camp meeting. Okay. But they still had all the other dysfunction. They were just back. My mother was curious about the desire of the patriarchs and prophets. She found this big old book in a thrift store, because that's how we got clothes. We thrifted. And she asked this lady who was selling books, let me tell you how Jesus works. And this is how, back then, that's what they did. They were called coal porters. And they sold books door to door and in-gathered with the little can. So this lady happened to, her name was Harriet Washington. She's deceased now, many years. She came to my mother's door, and it just so happens that she was trying to tell my mother about and buy some books. My mother had found this book in a thrift store and had been reading about it and the struggle in heaven between Lucifer and Christ and the third of the angels. So when this woman came to the door to sell my mother these books, my mother said, "Well, what do you know about the Sabbath?" My mother asked her about the Sabbath. And she came in, and okay, my mother was like, okay, my mother was in her own search to find Christ. It's so many, my mother, it's so ingrained in my family that a lot of dysfunction and things, and we just did what they did. And so anyway, we became Adventists, and my mother shared with my father, and it was like, Lil, whatever you want to do, I'll do it. And they got baptized. We were too little. They wouldn't baptize you then until you were at least 12. And none of my sisters were. I was 9. My sister was 10, and my baby sisters were 6. Anyway, we had been going, that we would be for Adventists. And there was this camp meeting thing. And it was in the summertime, and we went. But I had got strep throat, and it turned into rheumatic fever. While we were at camp meeting, I had a fever of 100, and it was really high. And one of the nurses who was at camp meeting told my mother to get me back to leave now and take me to Johns Hopkins Hospital, which was the hospital to go to in Baltimore. When they got me back there, I had come to the point where I was paralyzed on the right side from the rheumatoid arthritis because the fever was so high. The doctors thought I had polio. Okay. And I had developed a heart murmur because of the fever. All of this happened, and just like I kept complaining, but I was a tomboy in the family. My dad had a scaffolding on the porch, and I'm bouncing around, but please concentrate on the sickness and the drugs. The treatment then to keep me still, to not move around, was I would get a bicillin shot in alternate legs, and I had to take, they gave me a barbiturate called, anyway, it'll come to me. I was on barbiturates at 9 because they didn't want me to be active because of my heart condition. So I believe that my tendency to bring out the addiction, because addiction's in my family. But phenobarbital, that's what it was. I was taking phenobarbital and bicillin for the antibiotics because it developed with the strep throat. Anyway, by the time and I had to sleep in my mom and dad's room. I was so drugged out. By the time I would wake up, it was time taking because I couldn't be active. But even in that, I could hear this voice speaking to me. And I know it was Jesus. Now, fast forward on. So I'm on phenobarbital from 9 through whatever. And when I was, my dreams was like traveling because I didn't know that I was feeling the effect of the barbiturates. I was just always nodding. And I would always be asleep. My mother would wake me up to take my medication. A nurse would come to give me my shots. And I was just like bedridden. But mentally, I was fine. I couldn't run around or do anything and I remember asking God, or whatever this voice would be talking to me in my subconscious. It was God, I know now, because that same voice pulled me out of those drug houses and being it's just crazy. But the thing that God is always with us. If we just be still long enough to listen, we will know it is God, because God will be with you in a situation that nobody else could get you out of. And it's God. And I remembered from a child, God promised me, he said, you will be able to play one day. Just remember my voice. At 9. Sure enough, as I got into high school, I was weaned off. I could begin to take gym again. And the arthritis left, the heart murmur healed. When I became pregnant, I just knew I was scared, but there was no more heart murmur. God had healed me. And he was with me all through my addiction. I used to climb out of that low. It was like, and the devil will make stuff available to you. You don't need $1, okay? The devil will come in the shape of that guy who got all the drugs and say, come on, you want to get out? It was free until it got to be a habit. And when I had to pay with cash and didn't have none, oh, well, you're not so popular anymore. And now you're addicted. So you're going to have to do something. You're going to throw a brick. You're going to have to throw a brick to get paid so you can go buy a drug. And that's how my life was. I was not divorced, but I was separated. My husband was gone. I had this child and I was sad. And marijuana I did that so young, so much. It was like, marijuana was like a cigarette to me. It wasn't doing it anymore. It wasn't reaching the depth of my pain anymore. So I needed something else. And so I was doing marijuana, and I was going to the discotheque and popping pills because crack cocaine hadn't come out. The cheaper form of cocaine hadn't come out. And getting cocaine, you had to have a little money then to get cocaine. You had to be in the elite group to get the cocaine. But I managed to get it because I was singing at all these places where the people were. And so, I wasn't the groupie. I was that groupie. I was the entertainer that hung out with the people who had stuff after the show. So it came easy. But when I became addicted, people wasn't just going to, just keep feeding you this stuff. People think you're going to just hang out. At some point, you're going to have to do something. something illegal or something immoral. And trust me, whether you admit it or not, it all comes with the lifestyle. But nothing was getting healed and nothing was getting solved in my life and in my pain. I had compounded all of that with the expense. Drug addiction is like a job. You chasing it, because after your body becomes accustomed to it, you no longer feel the happy Your body is just calling for it now. So whether sunshine or rain, you're going to have to get it. And that's even with marijuana, people. Trust me, just because it's legal and all of that, be careful. But I found Jesus found me. He pulled me out. And that same voice, Jesus will talk to you in the same voice all the time. But we have to sit still and recognize that it's Jesus. And sometimes at the lowest, when you're just still and you're not out trying to find the cure yourself. How am I a wacko? Me, crazy girl, in pain, running around, drug addicted, going to find a cure for something. The stuff I was doing to find a cure was masking all of that. And it just took something else. Because I was in pain. When I sat still long enough to be tired, Jesus spoke to me again. He said, I love you. And it's not, all this is not your fault. But you have to stop. Because until you get clarity and get that mess out of your system, the drugs out of your system, because you have to remember, your body has become dependent on it. You just don't reach for God, because now you got this thing compounding on your body that you got to detox out of it. The liquor, the drugs, the cars, the women, all of that is a part of addiction. It's the life, it's you becoming dependent on something to take you away from your reality, people. So when you look down at that person who's shooting drugs, they're doing the same thing you're doing, but you're not shooting drugs. You're just looking at sex videos, or you're having sex a lot with people that you're not in a marital relationship with because they make you feel good. Yeah, and so it's all addiction is addiction. Food, drink, too much of something that's going to take you out of your reality. When I begin to develop a relationship with Christ for myself, is when I become to get to some point of clarity of who this self is. Without the drugs, without my mother telling me, oh, I didn't raise you to be this. It was just me and God. That's the real OG. You said G-O-D, that's my real OG is God. Because he kept it real with me. He said, I love you through all of this, but you got to stop this stuff. And then I got therapy in the TC. I had people we talked about those issues in my life, from the smallest one up to the tallest one. And people in therapy are not telling you what to do. They're talking about it over with you. And God is in the midst, giving you clarity and hope and forgiveness and understanding that my parents couldn't give me what nobody gave them. So I looked at them with more love because they sacrificed and they stood and stayed in all their pain. And they managed to raise us, to feed us, to clothe us to the best of their ability. And I developed a new love for my parents through treatment, because then you could see their dysfunction, the fights that they got, the pain that they were in. It's just a cycle of pain that we have to give it over to Christ. But you have to be vigilant. Just like I was vigilant looking for those drugs, I had to be vigilant in finding a new way to live and put Christ in the center of that.
Marilyn, what it sounds like, it's powerful what you just said. Here's how it sounds to me. Like at your lowest, you kept hearing God's voice. And there may have been points where you resisted what he was saying to you. And
oh, definitely.
You got to a point where, well, his voice didn't go away, but you got to a point where you could hear it a lot clearer. And then God not only did it for you, but he sent people who assisted in your rebirth. Could you identify? So you mentioned the therapy, the therapists, the support groups, it sounds like. Were there
Yes.
other angels on earth who he sent to help get you out of your low point?
Well, see, let me tell you, there are angels on earth. They do come in the form of people. But a lot of times when they say, people tell you, and it's true, that addiction is a family disease. You know, you let a lot of people down. You know, parents, they had hopes for you to be different than what they had. So even if you come out of high school and they want more for you. And you see, it's not only it's a mental disease first, but it affects you physically. Nobody expects when you start using drugs to wake up looking ragged, torn down, your body broke down, you losing everything, all the monies I made, the furs, the diamonds, all of that through singing. After I got addicted, I gave them things with no, not a second thought to the crack man or the drug dealer. You might as well say I was on the corner. Here, you want this? You want this? I did all of that, and so you have to reestablish certain trust with your family and people you hate, because they're looking at you like, I know how you was. I know the mess you was doing out here in these streets. So you lying to me. I'm not going to help you do nothing, because I know you're going to take my hard-earned money or the love I gave you or the trust I gave you or all of them things I gave you, and you're going to go right back to drug use, because once a junkie, once a crackhead, that's what some people, And it takes people who were there before. That's where the rooms of NA come in. It takes people who have been through that to explain to you what you're now about to go through when you're coming back. Because every phase of drug addiction, even coming back from drug addiction, is a new beginning. And even in our Christian walks, every day is a new beginning, because we're supposed to be growing in our. If you just stay there, you're not going to grow anywhere. So you have to be thriving and searching to get better, and to get your better quality of life comes from the mental quality of what you want to do and who you are. So my angels on life, I found them in the rooms of NA. And the people in NA are not perfect, and they're not all Christians, but they're using tools of life. They would say
NA is Narcotics Anonymous.
Narcotics Anonymous. And why it's called Narcotics Anonymous is because a lot of times you can't just stand up and broadcast, oh, I used to be an addict. I used to smoke crack. And I commend the people who do, because it takes a lot of courage to be vulnerable and open to the judgment of people who have not been there, who've not had struggles, because they look at you now as what they think caused you to be that. They only see the outcome of your pain and struggle. People who are obese, if you don't have they look at you like, oh, you just a fat. No, people do that. People gamble. People, all of they have drink. All of that comes from pain, And people who can't empathize or sympathize with your pain as the root of your problem judge you on being the result of it. You're alcoholic. You're this. They label. Just like the Black people now struggle. You just a nigga. You a dumb nigga. You a this nigga. You a that. You a this and that. That's not who, And neither are those titles that we put on each other. I'm not that. I'm still stuck. I'm stuck here, though. I'm stuck here. Help me. Love me. Teach me. And the rooms of Narcotics Anonymous will give you tools to keep you from running back to that thing that you're so accustomed to doing when you feel pain and hurt. So they give you tools. Like, keep it simple, stupid. Just say no. Do 90 meetings in 90 days because you're being still. You're weaning it out of your system and your mind. And it all comes into things of practicing. You have to practice being a Christian. And the teeniest things God tells us to do, they are important in your life. Just by loving a sister, holding them for a minute. You see somebody sad, you go make yourself available to them because they're going through pain, something. People react to pain differently. I react to pain differently because I'm never going to use another drug. I don't care what it is. I don't smoke. I don't drink because I know if you open that door for this sister here, the devil's waiting for me. He just wants me to do one more thing and it's going to kill me or it's going to take me out where I can't come back from. So I'm not going to do that anymore. But I might do some stupidness, like be mean or nasty or hateful, you know what I'm saying? Or just lie, develop another, because that's what Satan wants. He wants to put us in a place to take us from care of God. God is with us everywhere, through every situation, through every pain situation, through everything that we have. People who, if you're listening, just know this, that God is going to show up in your pain, whatever that is for that time. We just have to be aware that he is there and try not to keep, it's like sin. You keep practicing the same sin, you're going to keep getting the same result. I keep practicing using drugs, I'm going to keep getting same results from it. It's all sin. All of it is because that's not what God intended for our lives.
Marilyn, you don't know how sobering this is for me, because I'm thinking of the individuals in NA who, from your words, were like angels. And many of them may not have even been Christians, but the service they provided without judgment helped to lift you from one point to the next. What could you say to those of us who are believers, who God is counting on us to do what NA did for you and for others who are similarly situated? What can we do to become, to live up to our obligations, our assignment, our calling? Because people are, as you've indicated, waiting for someone to, without judgment, give them the help and the aid they need.
In the rooms of NA, people say, be honest. When you begin to be in denial about the things that you've done that you know are wrong and hide them, that is what keeps you stuck. The Bible tells us to repent. NA says, tell the truth. Don't be in denial. See, it's a parallel thing. But the main mixing factor is they don't want you to label God. They tell you to get a God of your own understanding. There is no other God but God. But people have to arrive and get to that. But God stands who God is, and he's out there by himself. God is our God all by himself. But he allows people to begin to tear the shades down to get to that path to see him as the only God. The rooms of NA, for people who are Christians, your test in your life is your testimony. And God would not have allowed you to go through those things and bring you out if he wasn't going to get the glory. God gets the glory when someone else is saved because of him. Not because you turned them into the Seventh-day Adventists, the Baptist religion, not because now they go to church, not because they just don't smoke anymore, or they just don't do all these other things. Because one thing that you don't do, there's 1,000 other things that we do. When you come across a person who you identify or remind you of the person you used to be, you don't have to go with your lesson and Ellen G. White in hand and start telling them, oh, you know, God can help you. They don't know how to even stop doing what they're doing for one moment. What you tell them is, I used to do that. I relate to your pain, brother. And if you just be still, if you can be still long enough to hear God, he is still there for you. Now, what can I do to help you through the next moment? What do you need? Don't think you got all the answers. But if you're going to go try to help somebody, be open to giving them what they need. And if they don't know what that is, then you keep looking. If you determined to be a real help, if you walk that path every day and you see the same, it could be a teenager out there. You know they belong in school or whatever. You see him every day, drop a seed of love. You know, brother, you know what? You know that school is okay for you to be. Just go in there. Something will happen to you positive. And you pray that God will let something happen to that person positive, because your whole purpose is to lead them to a different way of life. Not my way, because God has predestined all of our past that all lead back to him. But we have to be willing, we have to be the catalyst, and we have to be honest, because people are not going to relate to some phony mess you're trying to tell them, because they know good and well through all our upbringing and struggles. They've seen it. We've seen it through all our relatives, through all our life, that you didn't wind up where you are just like that. You didn't pop out like that. But if you're telling them that they can, you're lying. And they see that. They see us trying to, what they want to see is a human being who managed, who found it just as hard as they did. But in the third day of my addiction, when I ran out of all of my money, and some person came up to me and I had a choice at that moment. Am I going to go run and buy another vial of crack? Or I'm going to put this money and save it for something else. And it's decisions we have to make. It's decision, people coming every day. People have to begin to trust. And like they say, you can go there and talk to them. People say, hey, they may stink, and you don't have to take them to your house, but you be there every day. Yeah, well, what you need, bro? You hungry? Here, take this. You know, listen, well, I'll go, come on. I know you about to go buy something. They'll laugh because you done read them. You know, but that shows that you're aware. You know, don't think you're going to go just to a junkie and you don't know what it took to get. You don't know nothing about heroin. You don't know nothing about the effects of heroin. You don't know how they're going to need it, whatever. Don't go that route. If you know nothing about it, don't try to get in it, because you'll look like a phony and they're going to play you. They're going to play you. You know, you don't need to do that. Be honest, be helpful. Say, listen, brother, I know this is hard. This is a struggle. And share your hard just in a moment if they're willing to listen. Because see, your experience, you might not relate to my experience. And I might not relate to your experience. But the pain it took you in, I can relate to that pain. Because pain is a common denominator. Powerful. You know, just be honest in your testimony. You be honest. Yeah, well, these sisters who run around here telling these girls, your skirt too short or your pants too tight or whatever. It's what they're wearing in style. But you can compliment. You don't concentrate on that. They'll get it because they want to keep coming around. They'll get it when they see that that's not the atmosphere. That's not the atmosphere of the place that they want to be in. They want to be in the place. Then the things around them, the Holy Spirit, or just leaving them alone, the culture will change. They might not change their style. They might want to wear jeans every day, but they don't see nobody else wearing the super tight ones. Leave them alone in what you look like, because that's just the outward appearance that the Bible tells us man looks at all the time. Give them a sense of belonging. Give them this desire to want to stay. And if we teach nothing but Jesus, who don't want to stay around a loving, kind Savior that we have?
Come on.
Who does not want to be around the man who supplies our every need, who gives us the love that when my mother couldn't love me, when she was covering her bruises and sitting on the steps crying because she had just got the crap beat out of her. It wasn't nobody else to take her to that pain, but it was the love of Jesus in the form of her daughter, me, who I said, Mommy, it's okay, Mommy. It's okay, Mommy. That's what Jesus does for us. And he holds us until the cry. He will hold you. But people who know how to pray, you got to reach that. And I used to say, oh, God, just help me. Just let me sleep, Jesus. I'd be so wired up on crack nonstop that I would be so exhausted that I would sit at the table to eat and my face would be in the, man, I tell you, it's rough. So when people come to say, oh, you need to go, I went to Baptist church and I was from 9 when my mother, we were Adventists. I left the church. When I first came back from being clean, I went to a Baptist church because I wasn't trying to hear, oh, you had that baby out of wedlock, or oh no, you still got your ears pierced, or you got a tattoo, or your hair. I ain't gonna say it, but Kurt Blackwood. Now I'm dropping these names because these are the people who you might see as of just a musician, but he was playing. He was an Adventist playing at the church my husband plays in right now, and we were both going to that church. And Kurt and I would see, and once you get that moment of clarity and start living in the clarity, I didn't say living in the religion. I said living in the clarity, you and God's relationship and being just a good person. I know we have run out of time. Just being a good person who wants to do good, that's why you have so many people who are not religious will make it into heaven. Because they want to do good. They want to help mankind. They want to serve, but they love Jesus because or God or what God, but they may not have a relationship, and then they may. But they're just being pure and honest. Everybody has sin, but we're born in it. You can't expect people to be perfect because they found God. But we're striving to be more of his character. Kurt Blackwood said, I said, Kurt, and we were talking, I said, you know what? I used to be an Adventist, and I want to get back to the Sabbath. That brother's eyes got big as saucers. And at the time he was playing at Kingsborough. He said, oh, I know what kind of music, because I was all in the Baptist choir and everything when I got clean. He said, well, I want you to try this church. And he directed me to Kingsborough. Because of the music and because of this, and I went. But see, I know people don't remember me. My hair was bright orange, like that color hair, and my nails I was popping because I'm a colorful character, And I came in there and I sat down, and this sister, I ain't gonna call her name because I know she's just been an Adventist all her life. So that's all she know to do, what her parents did. And it's hard for people to break a mold. That's what I understand. But you got to look past all that. But anyway, she moved so far. I guess she thought my orange hair color and my nails going to jump off of me and do something to her. But, it's delicate. But me just coming out of my addiction, and I was looking for it, and I loved the music and all of that. I said, I ain't going back to that church. And see, that was that sister who had just got clean, being stubborn and feeling the sting of what people used to look at me, expecting me to come home high as in my early part of my getting clean and sober. People don't trust, because they just waiting, because of the trickery we have. Anyway, years and years later, guess where I am? At Kingsborough. You see, that's the relationship with God. And you have to tune out all of what them people say to you, because we're stronger than that. We are Black people who've been through some stuff. And if you don't accept who we are in our hearts as people and rely on just the strengths and the gifts that God, you know how them people used to go and they used to come back with a little ball of rice and some butter beans they would pick in the field and leftovers. Make some cornbread and some butter beans and some rice and a little piece of fat back. You want to tell me that was good eating? Wasn't good eating. But they used what they had. And out of love, they created those things. Everything we do, it must come from love. Not for no ulterior motive. Because that's the only thing that's going to last.
So Marilyn, I may get you in trouble, but could you say who also helped in terms of welcoming you back without judgment?
In Kingsborough?
Yeah, who helped you from Narcotics Anonymous to going to the Baptist church to coming to Kingsborough to almost being discouraged because of that sister to now staying and being an active part? And I do this at the risk of you forgetting some people.
No. Let me tell you. It was my desire not to go back to that life anymore. So you can say anything you want to me. You ain't running me nowhere, because I know who brought me back. It was Jesus, not the sister in the corner. I love them because we all have a common goal. We're trying to make heaven our goal. We're trying to do what's right. But see, once you've been there, you can identify struggle. And I know what took me. I know the people who judge me in the street and my own family, because that's where my hurt was. And then people just looking at me because they have their own stuff they're dealing with. So they when people judge you for something, because see, judgment is based on what you don't know. If I know you out there cheating, that's not judgment. I know you're cheating. It's no judging you to be this. If you judging me based on what I look and you don't know that that's what I'm doing, then you're just trying to take your focus is your focus on why you have to judge needs to be eternalized. Look at yourself. So when I get that, when I tell my story now, I don't care how you look at me, because I know who I am and what I've been through. And I don't care. I know God, and I feel happy. I'm happy because I'm not burdened down with all that excess stuff. We have our struggles in life. People who will love you back is what kept me. My brothers and sisters in there who know my struggle and will love me through it, whatever. They don't ask me. They don't look at me sideways. And I leave myself available. And I tell people, if you see me looking crazy one day, you better pull me up and ask me, girl, what you doing? Because you ain't looking right. That's what Christian people supposed to do. Not judge me from a distance and leave me out there to die. You don't love me. But you see me looking crazy and you know that ain't me. You see me looking sad. You see me not wanting to hug or smile. You know something's wrong because you know me. Or you know me. Then you come to me and say, girl, what is it? Or just hold me. I don't want to talk. It's okay. Hold me. And let me know that it's okay, that I can talk. But I know who to go to first. Because he's been there with me through everything. And he didn't show up black or white because he was in me. He came through me. He came in through the portals of my pain to let me know that he was there. He didn't wait till I was walking up and down and showed himself. He was in my pain with me. I used to climb out of my bedroom window trying to hide my addiction. I used to walk across the roof and climb down at my mother's house and go down the back alley at 1 and 2 in the morning after my daughter was asleep. And a lot of times trying to reach my foot down on top of a fence, Jesus held my foot to keep me from falling, even though he knew, because I was high when I was climbing out of that window. Trust me, I had just ran out and I wanted more. And if I made noise going down those front steps, somebody would hear me and try to stop me. Yes, this is the crazy stuff I used to do. Climb out the back window, step down on the gate, and go down the alley up that hill where they was doing the wire. The same streets, because that's what it was. There go I. But it was Jesus who held my foot and kept me from getting shot. My neck broke, me getting cut up trying to rob somebody out their money to get more. That's when Jesus is in the train. It ain't no luck. That's Jesus who's going to save me until I realize I need saving myself. That's how great the love of God is. He will save us until we realize that we need to be saved.
Powerful, powerful. So Sister Marilyn, you have a number of, I like to call them anthems, songs that you sing from your personal experience. One that comes to my mind almost immediately is I Feel Like Going On. I believe that's the title of the song. And you've done it now more recently with the young man who does the rap, the poetry.
Yes.
Any other songs that you feel are anthems based on your experience?
All gospel songs are just that. They're telling the gospel of Jesus. And those songs tell of a struggle. And why? Because God is always there. And even though you know, it's hard. People in general are suffering now, but the people who have gone through look at the people who have gone through so many wars in other countries that they've watched their families get blown up. And they still talk about love and peace. I feel like going on because there were days when I just would be getting I was felt in so much pain that I didn't know if I wanted to go on or not. But the song I Feel Like Going On is because I know something waits for me and I have a job to do, to go on to help somebody. Now I ain't trying to, I'm not a martyr that I know of. I'm not a saint that I know of. I just know that in anything that we do, whether it's the smallest or the grandest, God can use us to do something. And I'm not going to give up, is why, in other words, because when I started using drugs, I had given up. And I can't give up. I like life. I like living. You know, I have a family who needs me and I need them. And I just feel like going on because I ain't going to roll over. I ain't going to do it. I ain't going to do it. I'm not going to do it. Never again will I just lay down and die. And that's what we can allow life to do for us. Because God will give us the strength to even get through the next moment. I'm not saying it's not going to be hard. And I'm not going to say that it will hurt. That it's not going to hurt. It will hurt. But God says, I'm there with you. And I have enough. Take my yoke. Take my yoke. Because it's still a yoke. But what I got for you in this sinful world is a lot easier than what you're going to put on yourself, or what man is going to put on you, or what this life is going to put on you. And he'll give us the supplies and the means. And where's our gratitude lie in what he's given us? And all of that engulfed in the same thing is what will tell us, like, yes, I feel like going. Because if we wake up the next morning, we got a choice. We either going to stay there stuck, or we going to keep it moving. That's all. And that for some reason, the peace of the Lord will give us something to see, something that's evident, some word or some kind. Or we'll get a word, trust me. And they'll come from the strangest places. somebody will send me, and they think that, oh, it's just redundant. I send these things out, but that specific word will be tailor-made just for me, So saints, keep on having the intent to do good for somebody in whatever way that you can do something good, but make sure it's done out of love, not because, it's the quote unquote Christian thing to do. Because that Christianity thing can be perceived as a whole nother thing. If you just do it because I am a Christian, no, do it because you want to help somebody through love. Sometimes that's all we have.
Marilyn, you gave us a lot of nuggets, man, and I want to thank you so much for your transparency and your willingness to share of your story, your journey, a lot of it personal, but you willingly shared it with someone who may be listening who has personally gone through something they can't give voice to because they are ashamed, or they may have a family member who may be dealing with, it could be addiction, it could be mental illness, it could be incarceration, etc. Things that in the faith community, we judge people based on, so they're afraid or ashamed to share. Any words of encouragement to just close us out? The person may be going through it, or they may have somebody connected to them going through.
What I say is this, always encourage somebody to get some help. Trust me, they're going to hit bottom because their head is straight for it. That's what Satan's plan is. And you can just try to get people to get help, but until they're ready to see that they need help, we're not going to reach for Jesus. We're not going to reach for help. Satan's in the grips, but never give up on people. Pray them through and always try to direct them. Even if it's a therapeutic community, if it's a 30-day detox, if it's the court mandating them to get treatment rather than jail, if they be honest, I have a problem, help me. And you will get the help because Jesus wants us to get the help. We got to get out of the grips of Satan first. And I just encourage people to, be honest with yourself and just know that, until you get your own relationship with God, listen for his voice. Listen for his voice. And if that voice is telling you something that you ain't heard from no man, telling you, oh, girl, you look good, you sexy, you fine. Or, man, I got it going on, I'm making money. That ain't God's voice. God's voice is kind and it's gentle. It can be stern, but it's directly to you because he knows us. And just like the devil knows us too, Jesus comes to us the way that a father would come to us. And it ain't going to be like our physical father who's, but Jesus has his own way, and it because you're still, and the Holy Spirit is there for us. Just sometimes you just have to be still. And until you can get still, then that's where the people, we come in to help them. If people have a big problem, try to direct them to the rooms. Try to talk to them and tell them, listen, I know this is hard for you. We'll deal with what got you there after you get yourself clean physically. It's the most important, to help them, direct them to some help. Somebody who trained to help them first, because you got to be still and you got to get it out of your system, alcohol, whatever it is. And then you address what made you want to reach for it, and God is in all of that.
Powerful. Thank you so much, Marilyn Fielder Whitley, giving voice to the voiceless, gifted, transparent. Marilyn, are you opposed to people getting your information in case they connect so much they want to just reach out to you? You may have upcoming events, ministry events that you want people to know about. Are you willing to have people? I'll put your social media links in. Notes
they can. Ministry is powerful. There isn't much going on, but like I said, that's where the each one reach one. Sure, if somebody wants to talk, hey, sure,
Yeah.
I'm telling you that I'm 66. I don't be on Facebook every day, all day like that. But, ask somebody, you go to that church, come to the church.
Yeah.
I'm trying to be there. Said, if you don't want to go, you don't have to, just come to say hi, shake my hand. Or we talk, hear the music, we all are out here trying to get back to something, and everybody is a minister,
Sure.
Everybody is a minister. So, I don't know what to say. I'm here, you can come, you can, like you said, if it's there, I'm just like, whoa. I'll be at church. You can hit me on if you want to ask me a question, and I'll try to direct you to people I know or places, agencies, or somewhere. If you've tried them all, then I can talk to you more personal. I mean, whatever, I don't know, whatever the situation we're going for, I could use whatever means I have. I'll pray with you because that, stuff is going on, I'm grateful to have my husband in my life. I'm just going to say that because he puts up with all my crazy. I love that.
Sister Marilyn, oh boy, awesome.
I'm going to just say, our brothers, you know what, ladies, we all have our faults, but I never underestimate the strength and kindness of a Black man who wants to do good for his family and to serve God. I just love y'all, I encourage the brothers out there to encourage our younger brothers. And it may seem that they so far stretched out, but our young brothers are smart, and they just need a little good, honestly, Holy Ghost persuasion. They don't need to be beat up because it's already in them. They just need to have a little more exposure of Christ, because Satan is going for keeps. You hear me? Satan is out there, and if we're not trying to let God show that God is just as stronger in our lives and in our influence, because Satan, he's a master of lies. I keep going in and out, but yes, I thank you for having me.
Sister Marilyn, the pleasure was mine. Thank you so much for being a guest.
The way you feel fit, brother. Okay. I love you. Love you, my love to your family.
I will. Thank you so much, my sister. Love you as well. Thank you so much.
Take care. All right, brother.